idea for Soul Diver, it's a really cool looking concept. To me, it gives off this like almost 90s anime style meets like RPG. So talk to me about where that idea came from and just how it's evolved since you started developing.
This is like probably the most backwards thing as far as just from the traditional way of how I do things, or how anybody probably does things, where they have like some sort of story concept right off the get-go and then they jump into, developing later. I started making this game with the main character, Serafina. I had an idea. I think I was just watching some sci-fi documentaries on Netflix or something, and was just thinking about androids and what if they were so evolved that they actually had some sort of soul or sentience, to them.
Yeah.
So I developed this character, and from there, everything just kind of starts evolving story-wise.
Yeah.
I was just really working on mechanics at first, doing like, the basic locomotions, walks. And then I was kind of thinking, I want to make like an android cyberpunk kind of, type game. But then I was just like thinking about it. I was like, nah, like the world's kind of depressing right now. So and we're kind of headed that way.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to flip that.
Okay.
And I started looking into solar park, like the opposite basically of a cyberpunk future where people are actually using their technology, working with nature, basically to preserve it. So I started looking into that and, developing like really bright environmental scenery.
Okay.
I've always been a big fan of Journey. That was like one of my favorite games for sure. And just the environments and how the music and everything kind of told the story.
Yeah.
That's kind of the direction where I was going with it.
Okay.
And everything was kind of from there. It's like, okay, I got this little bit of an idea and I'm working on stuff. And then, oh, you know what? This would actually be cool. Let's tie in the cyberpunk element, but we're going to have it so you have these two different ideologies going on one planet. So the planet is actually tidally locked, and it fits into that whole aspect where you have one side facing the sun, where you have your solar punk elements where the people have learned to harness like the solar energy and work with nature to preserve the planet. And then you have the other side that's basically like corporate,
corporate dark. Okay.
Yeah.
Is the story, is that kind of still, is it something that's evolving slowly? Walk me through that one really quick.
Like I started out and I was like really, developing the character, and initially like it was just going to be like one character telling her story in this fantastic environments and all that stuff. But as it evolved, I started coming up with more ideas as far as to how to bring in those different elements from like the cyberpunk side, and how that corporate is they're the ones creating these like androids and decided that, hey, we want to weaponize them because that's kind of how they work. Kind of aspect would work. So I started working with a writer who's actually helping me get things all together, especially with a lot of conversational pieces, because that's something that with this type of story that I want to tell is that it's going to be like more of a story-driven, emotional like aspects between these characters as they go on. So there are still some parts that are being fleshed out for sure, but the kind of like core concepts for the most part are there.
Is this game, is it a true RPG where it's fully open world? Is it semi-open world? Kind of what have you decided yet? What's kind of the vision with that aspect of this game?
I didn't want to go full on open world just yet. That'd be kind of a lot for now. So I'm more like kind of giving it like that semi-open world feel where it's going to have a little bit more linear aspects to it, but the illusion of
being larger scale. Because you're solo right now, correct? You don't have...
Correct.
Okay.
It's just me doing basically all the programming, all the characters, artwork. I do have a composer, Ricardo, who's been awesome. He was literally the first person that I brought in, I guess.
So for the world and the game itself, you're still building it obviously, but kind of talk to me about different things that are already integrated into it at this point.
As far as the world, right now there's 3 major environments that kind of make up this planet. Technically, we can say like 4 maybe. One side is going to be bombarded with the sun. So total desert aspect, where I started thinking about, what kind of creatures and things are going to be living, have evolved and to live in this area, like a lot of crustacean type, almost like cockroach, I guess, is about because they can survive that kind of environment,
Yeah.
So like just a lot of things that like I kind of think about and just combine things. And then as you move further into the planet, that's where it's going to become more lush environment, a lot of trees.
Okay.
Buildings with like incorporated trees and different like nature aspects into it.
Yeah.
Almost like the post-apocalyptic, where they always have like the skeleton of a building and then there's trees overgrowing it.
I was going to say Forbidden West style kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. Instead of like skeletal buildings, they're actually like used.
Yeah.
Like people living in them, and they just have like trees growing in them. Like right now, I just got like the code names for like these different areas.
Yeah.
So there's the Sol side, which is going to be the heavy sun side. The in-between area is going to be like a twilight. If you're familiar with D&D, Feywild. So that constant sunset.
Okay.
So you're going to have a different environmental aspect there. And then on the far side is going to be Nox, which is going to be in the complete darkness, and that's going to be like more cyberpunk, maybe for like frostpunk too, I would say, because it's going to be a lot more ice, snow areas in that, with like big neon lights and everything, and like the cities that they've created. So more industrial, but like corporate.
From an environmental design standpoint, what was kind of the hardest element to bring to life?
Yeah, coming up with the shader design. I like to learn a lot of stuff as I'm going too, if I don't know how to do it. I mean, there's an easy way like to make shaders. You can use like the shader graph in Unity. Yeah. But I really wanted to learn how to hard code shaders too. So that was like kind of like a thing for me that was just a little bit difficult to get like some of the lighting right, and that's like kind of like what I'd mentioned with the sand shader. Some of the lighting aspects don't necessarily always work out as well. Like you turn the camera on, it'll just like it'll just get a little bright, and you're like, oh, okay, well, I still got to tweak that. Yeah. But that and like learning how to just like try to really bring that sense of realism. Like with the snow aspects that I've been playing around with, and just adding like snow trails in for like when the characters are walking around. Yeah. That was something that I had to really think about, and how I was going to actually create that.
Where did the idea for the main character come from? You were mentioning that was kind of the first place you started. So walk me through that one.
This is where things are going to get weird. Okay. So the story about Seraphina, and I had made a TikTok video about this, like, I don't know, a long time ago. So when I was probably like, I don't know, 19, early 20s, something like that. And I don't want to go into like the super detail of like, I guess, the story, but there was some crazy stuff going on at that particular time with me and like a group of friends and some other stuff. Okay. And I had this like crazy spiritual type of incident where like I basically interacted with my guardian angel, I guess. Like I said, this is like where it's weird. It's like I've never been like super heavily religious or anything like that, but it was just like a weird incident that occurred during this event in my life, and it always kind of just stuck with me. And the name Sarah was the name that I got. So flash forward to creating Seraphina, who's the main character. Yeah. Or sometime around that, like when I started creating her, because I didn't really have the name Seraphina. I just kind of, had an idea of what she was going to be like. And my wife was like really into like, metaphysical stuff, like crystals and, things like that. Yeah. We'd go out and shop or whatever. And I found that there was a stone called Seraphonite. And I was just like, oh, that's kind of cool. And it has like these like angel wings on it and stuff. And I was like, okay, that's a little weird. And then everywhere we were going, the name Sarah kind of like kept popping up. And I was like, okay, that's it. So like, that's kind of like the name, the whole design aspect of her with like the kind of like rabbit ear type thing. Yeah. Her whole story is she loses her memories. And like she has no idea who she was prior to. So you're kind of finding that out together with, as a player, and, as she's like finding it out. And she has her AI companion, Gabriel, who is basically built into her chassis. There's like a relationship where he's giving her information from what he can kind of gather about her. So you're just, everything starts to kind of, you know, just evolve from there.
This kind of breaks the flow of where we're going, but circling back to the environment design, do you have any anticipation of bringing in like a day and night cycle?
Yeah, that's the interesting thing about tightly locked planets. If I'm going to bring in a day and night cycle, it's actually going to be more of a lunar cycle, because the sun is going to be constantly locked the planet to one side, where the moon would still be able to.
Have you thought about is that something that you want to do in this game?
I'm thinking that would add a cool element to it.
Yeah.
Especially when you visit into that region, it'll definitely give some nice element to really, like, you know, different cool like lighting effects and stuff like that too. So
yeah, because with a lot of games there is a day and night cycle, and some of them don't even need it, and it's just kind of an aesthetic to the game. A lunar cycle, I'm sure there are some games that have it, but off the top of my head I can't think of any, so it would definitely be a very unique thing to bring into the game. That'd be very cool.
I don't know, I'm kind of doing a lot of different things. I've realized, like, experimenting, you know, trying out different things where I'm creating into you know, like a Japanese style like RPG type of game with a lot of like action RPG elements, taking different directions, and Dead Space was like one of my favorites. And I really like the immersive feel that they made with creating a character, your health bar and everything incorporated into the model. So that was one of the things that
is that something that's incorporated to your character?
Yeah. Okay. So the whole idea with Gabriel and the AI is that he's basically a character, but he's your everything. He's your heads-up display. He's your inventory system and everything like that.
Okay.
So I started developing like almost like you're talking to Siri type of thing. She'll talk to him. They'll banter back and forth. You know, he's a little bit more direct.
Yeah.
Where she's, you know, a little bit more playful type of aspect. So her kind of like persona, I took inspiration from Rurouni Kenshin. You remember that anime, or Samurai X?
Okay.
Where he has like these two sides, where he's super serious fighter, but then he's also like goofy. I always kind of enjoyed that kind of duality with the characters. So
walk me through kind of the combat element of this game. You know, I know you're still kind of early in development at this point, but kind of, is it going to be like sword combat? Are you going to have mixed combat where you can have long range versus sword combat? What are the enemies going to look like? Kind of walk me through that whole element with this.
I actually have a lot of swords, long range weapons. There's an archer named Mesa. Her weapon is actually a combination weapon or transformational weapon that I came up with, where it actually switches. It's animated so that it turns into a sword and back into a bow.
Okay.
So it's kind of got, you know, two different fighting styles. In that regard, a lot of inspiration for different ideas and stuff, and how like I've created these like character classes, if you will. I'm not gonna lie, it's, you know, D&D. I play D&D.
That's where the inspiration comes from. Yep.
Yeah, I play D&D weekly. You know, with my group, and I got an app on my phone that I'm like making characters and doing different ideas and just multi-classing different things. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to play this character in a one shot and see how it works. And then a lot of times they turn out to be really fun. So then I'm like, okay, I want to use those kind of elements into the game. There are guns. One of the characters, Lily, she's got these gigantic robot arms, and she's like this little schoolgirl, which I thought was just kind of a cool concept.
Yeah.
And her giant robot arms actually just have, it's like a Swiss Army knife. So there's just guns and swords and like everything. They're packed into it, like different pieces open up, you know, and there's cannons and stuff coming out of it.
That's awesome.
There's hand-to-hand fighting, you know, characters. So I kind of want to, you know, I'm doing a lot of different elements. There's magic, you know, in this world as well.
Okay. Crafting is less of a integral element to this game. Can I ask what the main drive factor behind the inventory system is then?
The inventory system
is it like health and stuff?
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, you're gonna have like your health items, replenishment for your magic, that kind of thing, ammunitions, different weapons that you can pick up as well. Like each class is gonna have like a specific, you know, type of weapon that they use.
Okay.
A lot of the stuff that I show, you know, my socials, I'm mainly using just Serafina and like testing out these different, you know, weapons with her character, just since I've already got her like pretty much all like set up. So a lot of those things, her main weapon is a harmonic sword, is what I call it. It's just this buster sword that's splits in the two swords. So that's going to be like her main focal weapon. The weapon system for that and how I created that is that the offhand weapon, when it attaches based on what it is, gives a different element. So you got like a flame sword, like short sword, when you combine them together, then she's got like, it just lights up, and
that's cool. Yeah, I like that.
So I thought that was like kind of a cool aspect. One of the things that I wanted to do with that was like, probably one of the main things I did in the beginning. I thought was really cool with that weapon design, and then just kind of starting to branch out and do different things.
So are the bosses even bigger now than the original ones?
Yeah, okay. The bosses are gonna be pretty sweet.
Okay.
I got some ideas, going with those characters being developed, but I started diving into one of the aspects, since it is like such a cool environment heavy world that I was creating, and the idea was more aesthetics, like with the world environment. I started thinking about how I'm going to traverse the area if you're just going to be running around on foot. So there will be actually mechs.
Oh, that you can like ride around?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
As far as like combat mech stuff yet, I haven't really decided on that. I think maybe Soul Diver 2.
Save it for the future. Yep.
Yeah, maybe we'll dive into that later, but so I'm working on getting some cool looking like mechs. I've already got like some stuff that I've made before, and you'll be fighting those as well. So, and
publisher, I'd imagine you haven't got one yet, correct?
No, I don't have any publishers yet.
Okay.
To be honest, it's kind of scary.
Yeah. I was, it's interesting because a developer I recently talked to, they got their publisher extremely early in development, like almost at the very beginning. And their theory was you get it earlier, you can market earlier, and they can answer the questions that you didn't even know you had yet. And they can bring like more knowledge to your project than you were ready to see at that point, I guess is the way you can word it. Which, other developers can have disagreed with that, where they'll say, your publishers will start to interfere with how the game is looking, how it's going to look, kind of the final product, things like that. They can push a lot of feedback. So I think, it's good and it's bad at the same time. It just really depends on the publisher you get and kind of how much they want to be a part of the project, because a lot of developers wait to the very last second, because then they can't really have any feedback to give on the project itself. So are you going to get a publisher, or you want to try to do it on your own, or kind of have you even thought about that yet? No idea yet.
Like I've had publishers reach out to me, had quite a bit.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
That have expressed interest or asked me if I'm looking. But that's kind of a whole new realm to me, as far as that goes. So I've actually talked to some of my other dev friends that are more experienced with that sort of thing. So my biggest thing is my biggest takeaway is that I have to probably hit up my buddy that's like a lawyer, just to be able to go over stuff to cover myself, because I don't want to get
screwed over.
I'm already broke. I don't need to get more broke.
It's a very good outlook on it. Yeah, no, I get that.
Yeah, so that's the kind of thing I don't really. It's kind of like, oh, thanks. Appreciate your interest, but I don't know right now.
Well, you're still early right now too. I mean, you're still fleshing out the world. So at this point, I don't think it makes sense anyway. But to each developer their own. I would definitely understand a developer who wants to get it early, but I think you're fine not worrying about it at this point. That's interesting. The indie market, it's a really major part of the industry now, more than it's ever been, because I think with AAA titles at this point, a lot of them are, I don't know if I would say scared, but a lot of them they're stuck in the mold they've been in for the last 15 years. Something like, I guess the easiest thing to put as a comparison would be Call of Duty. They have their formula and they can't really deviate from that formula because people are so used to it at this point. And there's a lot of developers as a whole that have that. And in the indie market, you don't have to worry about that. You can make whatever you want, and it's much more creatively driven. So I think those two elements together, you have major companies that can't really change what they're developing, just because unfortunately player feedback is so negative towards that at this point that they feel like it would just hit their bottom line too much. So I never realized it until I started interviewing devs, but there's a lot of politics that goes into game development. It's just one of those weird things.
Yeah, that's why I just like where I'm at.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to have a team because I mean, some days I'm just like, oh my gosh.
Do you want to go solo the whole way, or you want to bring people in?
I wouldn't mind bringing people in because I feel like I'm good at doing certain things, but for my overall vision, there's somebody better that could maybe someone that's a better like modeler, or I don't know, concept artist or something, stuff like that. Like I wouldn't mind working with those people.
Yeah.
It's just that aspect is a little bit tricky to navigate when you don't really have the funds to hire somebody in.
Yeah.
That's, and I've worked with or had some people come in before to do some stuff, but it just kind of didn't work. Like they just disappeared or didn't work out because time schedules. So that's always a big
thing. One thing that comes to mind when you develop this game, are you making it currently with controllers in mind or no?
Oh yeah.
Okay, cool. Because I know usually if you start out, you want to start by making your game controller compatible. Otherwise, it's a nightmare to go back and rework everything. So that makes a lot of sense. Okay. Is there any?
Yeah, I've got it both ways. I mean, I've actually already got Xbox controller plugged in.
Nice. All right, yeah. Is there anything you kind of want to touch on with the game itself before we kind of wrap things up, like the characters or the environment or like a specific thing that we missed or anything like that?
We've covered a lot about it. I mean, I guess like the biggest thing, because like I talk to you in DMs or whatever about it, is for me personally, like I don't think I'm like some sort of inspiration to people, but I like talking about my situation with anxiety and stuff. That's for me, this has been the best experience, is developing this. It's actually like helped me to a degree to like center and ground myself. Just sitting here on my computer, making crazy things, and really helped. I think there's a lot of technology and stuff that you can use to really help in like aspects like this. Because early on, with my anxiety issues, what ended up happening was like I have a hard time talking if I start having like a panic attack or anything like that. Well, I actually found a way to make Serafina a VTuber, because I was making stuff, but I was having a hard time expressing and like talking about that. So I turned her into a VTuber, and initially she just had some random AI voice that I liked, and
that's cool.
And it was to me, I think, and maybe other developers that watch this or anything, or people getting into game dev, that's actually kind of a really cool way to actually develop your character, I found, because you're acting as the character. So that it was I think a really cool aspect, and it's given me a lot of respect and everything for people in the VTuber realm as well. So that is kind of I guess a part of this game too, to some degree. And I'd mentioned it like in the past, but at some point I would like to somehow incorporate that maybe in the future, like maybe in future iterations of the game, or maybe even something different. Next project kind of thing, where it's like giving back to like the VTuber community that kind of it just helped me out.